dear students, I am Dr. Shikha Pandey, Associate Professor from Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. So in this lecture series of this subject environmental studies, we are at that point of we are going to discuss about the definition and basic terminology related with this subject, related with this module number 1. So first of all, as we in the previous lecture, I have discussed about some environment and ecosystem terminology that is related with the subject, and this will be for our basic understanding of this subject, like little definition and the basic terminology that is related with this module number 1. So let's start the basic definitions of the terms related with the module number 1, that is environment and ecosystem. So in previous lecture, I have already discussed about the word environment. Like this word environment has been originated from a Greek word that is environia. That means to encircle or to surrounding. So the study of the interaction of the person with the environment and the study of the interaction of the surroundings is called as environment. So in a basic term, we can say that the study of the interaction of human being with their environment is called as environment. Now, so in this lecture, now comes to the next terminology, that is what is phosphorus cycle. So I have already discussed about the cycles that has been in the last lecture. So phosphorus cycle is nothing but the movement of phosphorus through the lithosphere, hydrosphere and biosphere. Means the recycling of nutrients is called as cycle. So the recycling of nutrient like phosphorus is called as phosphorus cycle. Phosphorus is not a gaseous cycle, it is a sedimentary cycle, and the movement and the pathway of phosphorus through by the lithosphere, by the soil, and then its movement into the hydrosphere, that is water, and biosphere, that is all life, that is all together, that is called as phosphorus cycle. Means the movement of phosphorus through the all segment of environment is called as phosphorus cycle. Means the movement of biogeochemical cycle, that is, as we have already discussed about the nutrient cycling. Nutrient cycling is what? It is a movement of nutrient into the atmosphere is called as nutrient cycle, and it is there is a process of recycling also. When in the form of different form, it will again come back to the environment. So this is about the nutrients recycling and cycling. So for in this way, this is phosphorus cycle is also that kind of cycle, that is the movement and the pathway of phosphorus into the all segment of environment. First of all, into the lithosphere, then hydrosphere, then atmosphere, and the all movement of phosphorus into the all segment of environment is called as phosphorus cycle. Next thing is about the carbon cycle. Carbon cycle is again there is a movement of carbon through the different segments of the atmosphere is called as carbon cycle, and as all life is based on the element carbon, that's why carbon is the main constituent of living organism. So the movement on recycling of carbon through the protein, carbohydrate, fats and amino acid from its a different pathway, and it's a recycling of carbon into the from the protein, it will go to carbohydrate, fat, amino acid. That is the main basic functional unit of a individual organism. So this is called as carbon cycle. Next thing is about the oxygen cycle. Oxygen cycle is again a gaseous cycle. So oxygen is released in the atmosphere by plants during photosynthesis and taken up by autotroph and heterotroph during respiration. This flow of oxygen is called as oxygen cycle. Means the flow of oxygen into a trophic level into one organism to different organism is called as oxygen cycle, and oxygen is a very important basic unit of life for a survival of any person. Oxygen is very much important. So first of all, oxygen is released into the atmosphere by some plants called as by the process of photosynthesis. Green plant will take sunlight and they will do photosynthesis, and by this process of photosynthesis, oxygen will release, and then it has been taken up by autotrophs. Autotrophs means green plants and heterotrophs during respiration, and this is the flow of oxygen is called as oxygen cycle. This flow of oxygen from sunlight to green plants and green plants to heterotrophic organism is called as oxygen cycle. So this is about the oxygen cycle, that is also a gaseous cycle, and that is already present in our atmosphere. So it is about the some cycle that is nutrient cycle, that is some nutrient cycle is there, and that nutrient cycle is very much important for all the life that is existing on this earth. And nutrient cycling is nothing but the movement of nutrients from one part to another part and then again return back into its atmosphere, into its previous form, is called as nutrient cycling. And in this way, we can define this nutrient cycle is of two types. First one is the gaseous cycle and sedimentary cycle. So oxygen is a gaseous cycle, but phosphorus is a sedimentary cycle. Means this has been present in the sediments of the earth. So this is about the cycling of nutrients. Now comes to the next thing about that is sedimentary cycle. Sedimentary cycle means are those biogeochemical cycle which include elements like iron, phosphorus, calcium, sulfur and other earthbound element. In this cycle, the element move from land to water and then back to sediments. Cycle for each element is different, but each of them goes into the solution phase and the rock phase. Already this name suggests sediments means those elements that are bound with the sediments of the earth. Bound with the sediment of the earth means sediment of earth means those elements that has been bound with the sediment of earth, and example is iron, phosphorus, calcium, sulfur cycle, phosphorus cycle and all those cycle means elements that has been bound with the earth. So this cycle elements that will move from land to water. It will move from land to water. That is called as sedimentary cycle. Means sedimentary cycle will be because it is already bound in the sediments of the earth. That's why it will be coming from the land to the water and it will be mixed up in the water, and then from water they will again go back into the land. It will again go back into the land. So this is about the sedimentary cycle. Means sedimentary cycle, already we know that this is like a recycling of nutrients. This is like a recycling of nutrients. Recycling of nutrients. So what will happen in this? Nutrient will recycle means nutrient will again come into the land. That sedimentary cycle starts with land and it end with water, and after water it will again come back into the land. So this is about the recycling of nutrient from one form to another form. And in this cycle the element will move from land to water and then again it will come back to the sediments and it will be bound into the sediments and then it will release into the environment through the land and then again goes to the water and then again it will be come back. Then the cycle, as we already discussed, that the cycle for each element is little bit different, but each of them goes through a solution phase and rock phase. Means sedimentary cycle means what will happen in the sedimentary cycle, all elements have to pass through a first of all a solution phase means water phase and then a rock phase. Solution phase to rock phase. This is a journey of a sedimentary cycle. Solution phase to rock phase. This is a journey of a sedimentary cycle. An example of sedimentary cycle is the iron cycle, phosphorus cycle, calcium cycle, sulfur cycle, and all those elements that are earth bound, that is has been bounded with the earth, is called as sedimentary cycle. So in this cycle the element move from land to water and then back to sediments. The cycle for each element is different, but each of them goes through a solution phase and a rock phase. Means obviously it is bounded with the sediments, so it will release through a rock phase, through a solid phase, by the solution, by some activity, some rain activity or like that. So then it will be released into the land and then it will again come back to the rock phase. Means again it will be going to bounded with the sediments and then it will be leave as a bounded with the sediments. Sediments means soil. So this is about the sedimentary cycle. That's why it is called as sedimentary cycle. Means those elements that has been bounded with the sediments of the earth, the rock sediments that is present in beneath the earth surface. And this sedimentary cycle, we can say an example of the sedimentary cycle is the sulfur cycle and phosphorus cycle, iron and calcium cycle. So this is about the sedimentary cycle. Now comes to the next definition, that is a very common thing. Means what is the scope of environmental science, because in unit 1, in the model number 1, this is a very basic and the very important question in this model number 1, the scope of environmental science. So in this environmental science we are going to study about the large area and aspect that will be summarizes in the different kind of circle, that will be different basics of this subject. First of all, we'll study about the natural resources. This environmental science is the study about the natural resources, means forest and the forest, that is forest land, and we will study about the conservation and management of these things, management of land and forest that is already available on the earth. Next is about the ecology and biodiversity. Ecology and biodiversity is all together. We can say that all fields of environmental science is the basic scope of the this subject, and this is include a very large area and aspect. And the next thing we are going to study about ecology means a relationship ecology and biodiversity. So ecology means the function of an organism into their own environment. Function of organism into its own environment is called as ecology. Function of an organism into its own environment is called as ecology. Next thing is about the pollution and its control, means all the study about the all environmental problems and its effects and its control is also coming under this scope of this environmental science subject. Next is about the human population and environment, means the population of human and its interaction with their own environment and its interaction with the day-to-day life is the next scope of this subject. Next thing about the all the social issues in relation to development and environment, means all the socio-economic. This will be considered under the socio-economic category of environment, means social issues that will be like sustainable development. Some we can say that poverty. That's why poverty is also a social issue that has been relation with the environment, because due to the cutting of forest and due to the habitat destruction, poverty will come, and if poverty will come, that will affect economy of any country. So these are the socio-economic things that is related with this subject. And many social issues like poverty and flood, drought, all these are, we can say that these are socio-economic effects. This social issue is already connected with the environment, and it has a direct effect on the economy of a country. So this is a very important term. We have to study socio-economic effects of this environment science. Socioeconomic effects of in socioeconomic effects of any nation. So this is about the scope of this subject, that is environment science. Means this environment science we are going to study about the natural resources, its conservation management, all ecology and biodiversity that is already present on the earth, environmental pollution and their control, human population and its interaction with the environment, and the social issue that will be having a relationship with the development of country and environment. So these are the main scopes of this environmental science subject. Now comes to the next definition and terminology that we are going to study about the desert ecosystem. So in this ecosystem part, we are already defined and given definition about the ecosystem, that is the interaction of an organism with their own environment. We can say that it is an ecosystem. So first one is about the desert ecosystem, means those regions where the annual rainfall is range between 250 to 500 mm and evaporation rate is quite high is called as desert ecosystem. Means ecosystem where rainfall is very less, and evaporation rate is high. Evaporation rate is high. So this kind of condition, we can say that it is a desert ecosystem. Means they have very less annual rainfall. So if rainfall will be very less, then they don't have much amount of water. So that this kind of condition, we can say that it is called as desert ecosystem. And their transpiration rate is also high. Means evapotranspiration rate is also high. So that this kind of condition will create is called as desert ecosystem. An example for desert ecosystem is the Sahara Desert. And next thing about the basic components of this desert ecosystem. What are the living and non-living component on this desert ecosystem? So first of all, abiotic component. Abiotic components means non-living component of this ecosystem, desert ecosystem. So non-living components of this desert ecosystem are the temperature, rainfall, soil and water. These are the non-living component or abiotic component of desert ecosystem. And then the next thing about this desert ecosystem is what is the biotic component of desert ecosystem. Biotic component means living component. What are the living organism that is present on this desert ecosystem. So biotic components means living things, that are all living things that will be present on this desert ecosystem. So these are example of this biotic component of desert ecosystem. Will include some producer like shrubs, bushes, some green grasses and few trees and plants, some name that will name as cacti, acacia, euphorbia. These are some plants that will be available in this ecosystem called as, and we can call them as a biotic component. So this is about the biotic component of ecosystem, means the living things that is present on the ecosystem. And we already know that ecosystem is an interaction of an organism with their biotic and abiotic component. With the combination altogether of these kind of these component of an ecosystem, only an organism can survive in an ecosystem. So the interaction of organism with their biotic and abiotic components and its environment is called as ecosystem. Completely all together, we can say that the interaction of organism with the living and non-living components of any ecosystem is called as ecosystem. And for that, desert ecosystem are those ecosystem where annual rainfall is less than 200 to 250 to 500 and is evaporation rate is very high, is called as desert ecosystem. An example of this desert ecosystem is Sahara Desert, Gobi Desert, and it is a desert is not always hot. Sometimes cold desert is also there. An example for cold desert is Gobi Desert, and this is where the annual rainfall is very less, like 250 to 500 and its evapotranspiration rate is also high. Is called as desert, and the main components of desert ecosystem are the abiotic components like non-living components and living components. So non-living components are, as we already know, temperature, rainfall, water, soil, all these are non-living component of any ecosystem. Means temperature, rainfall, everything. And biotic components are the producer, decomposer that are already present on this ecosystem. And the interaction of organism with the biotic and abiotic component of an ecosystem is called as ecosystem. Means for a survival of any species in an ecosystem, they have the connection, the component of both of them is very much important. Means like their interaction with the abiotic factors and biotic factor of an ecosystem is very much important. Now comes to the next thing about what are the consumers of the desert ecosystem. Means what are the main consumers, what are the next topic level of this desert ecosystem. So consumer of desert ecosystem are some insects, reptiles, rodents of rats and rabbit, bird, camel, which are capable of living under the desert condition. Means all these biotic factors like insects, reptiles, rodents, means these are the consumer of rats of that desert ecosystem. Means they can feed on the autotroph or producer of that desert ecosystem. So insects, some reptiles, some of the rodents of rats, some rabbit, birds, camel, they are capable of living under the desert condition. Next question is about what are decomposer of the desert ecosystem. All these questions are very much important, and these basic terminology are very much important from the examination point of view. So decomposer of desert ecosystem include some bacteria, fungi, and due to poor vegetation and less quantity of dead organic matter. Means some bacteria and fungi are there in this desert ecosystem. So they will decompose the dead material and they will recycle the nutrients that are already present in the dead organism and they will return it back to the environment. So this is it is the role of a decomposer. Decomposer role is very much important in the recycling of nutrient, because decomposer, what they will do, they will decompose all organism and they will bring back the nutrient already present in that dead organism. So in the process of recycling of nutrient, that decomposer will play a very important role. And the decomposers of desert ecosystem are mainly will include some bacteria, fungi, and they have due to very less vegetation is there in the desert ecosystem. That's why the dead organic matter quantity is also very less. And due to less vegetation, The nutrients or the dead organic vegetation is also very less. Next, we are going to study about the pond ecosystem. Define the term pond ecosystem. A very normal question that will come in the examination, or a very normal terminology that is associated with the pond ecosystem. That is, the pond ecosystem, we refer it to the freshwater ecosystem when there are communities of organisms that are dependent on each other with the prevailing water environment for their nutrients and survival. Pond ecosystem, generally we can refer to it as a freshwater ecosystem. And freshwater ecosystem where many community of organisms are there and they are dependent on each other with the prevailing water environment for their nutrient recycling and survival and their growth. So this is about the pond ecosystem. Pond ecosystem is general we can see that the freshwater ecosystem where many communities are there and they are dependent on each other and with some prevailing water environment for their nutrients and survival. Now comes to the different trophic level of the pond ecosystem. Means first of all, if we'll say the first trophic level of the pond ecosystem is the, again, producer is there. Producer, this is the common structure of any ecosystem. First of all, producer is there, then consumer is there, then a decomposer is there. So that's why this is already in the shape of a pyramid. As we have already discussed about these things, this any structure, if we talk about the structure of an ecosystem, it is a graphical representation in the form of a pyramid, because producer will be in more number, then consumer number is little bit less, and then decomposer is little bit less. That's why its shape is in the form of pyramid. So the producer of pond ecosystem are some grass, algae, water lilies, water hyacinth, and phytoplanktons. Means they are the primary producer of a pond ecosystem. You can see that there's grass is there, algae, water lilies, water hyacinth, and phytoplanktons. Next is about the next trophic level of this pond ecosystem. Next trophic level means the consumers of the pond ecosystem. And the consumer in any ecosystem, pond ecosystem, the primary consumer are tadpole larvae of frogs, fishes, and other aquatic animals that will consume green plants and algae as their food. Means those consumers, those organisms that are dependent on the primary producer as their food, they are the source of their food, they are the main thing of their food, is called as consumers. Means so the example of this consumer of pond ecosystem is the primary consumer as tadpole, some larvae of frogs, fishes, and other aquatic animals that will consume green plants and algae as their food. Next question is about the biotic components of the abiotic components of the pond ecosystem. Abiotic components means non-living component, means non-living components, as we have already discussed that those that are non-living component of any ecosystem. So again, in this pond ecosystem, non-living factors that are present on this ecosystem. So first of all, this is a water quality, temperature, light, soil, seasonal change. Seasonal change means some change, temperature variation are the main abiotic factors of any pond ecosystem. So, abiotic factors means non-living factor of any pond ecosystem are the water quality, water temperature, it's light, sunlight, some soil is there, some seasonal change due to the sunlight, and are the main abiotic factor of a pond ecosystem. So this is about the abiotic component of pond ecosystem. Means all non-living factor that is present in an ecosystem is called as abiotic component of this pond ecosystem, and its example is the water quality, temperature, light, soil, and seasonal change are the main abiotic factor of pond ecosystem. Next, we are going to discuss about the values of ecosystem. So what are the direct value of ecosystem? Direct value of ecosystem are that people depend upon directly and easy to quantify economic terms. Means directly, if a person will get direct benefit from the ecosystem is called as direct value of the ecosystem. Means its example is a forestry products, fish, drugs we are getting, medicinal plants we are getting, and fish we are getting to eat. So this is the direct benefit where any individual can get from an ecosystem is called as direct value of ecosystem. Means directly the value associated with the ecosystem, any person can get benefit from the ecosystem, and its example is the some forestry product, some medicinal plant, drugs, some fishes we are going to eat. So this we can take directly from the ecosystem. So these are the direct benefit of an ecosystem. Next thing is about the indirect value of the ecosystem. Indirect benefit means those benefit that will come to a human being indirectly. So its first example is the some aesthetic value of an open land, and indirectly if we'll get any product, we'll get some wood product, so we can say that it is an indirect value. If we'll get matchstick is an example of indirect value of an ecosystem. Wood is an example of wood, firewood will get, this is an example of direct value of an ecosystem, and matchstick is an example of indirect value of ecosystem. Means ecosystem is giving your association and your benefit that will be not indirectly. If it will come indirectly, means it will come in the form of any product, then we can say that this is the indirect value. And direct value, directly we are taking the benefit from the ecosystem, like forestry product, agriculture is there, crops is there, so directly we are taking their benefit. It is the direct value of ecosystem. Next is about the ecology, term ecology. It is a very important term that will come in the examinations also. So define the term ecology. Ecology is a Greek word. Ecology is a Greek word which means Greek word, and it means oikos, which means house or place, and logos means discussion or study. First of all, one word is there, oikos, that means house, and logos, that means study. So the study of a living scientific study of distribution and interaction between organism and their natural environment is called as ecology. Ecology has been derived from a Greek word which means oikos, oikos. Oikos is the first word and logos is the second word. Oikos means a house and logos means to study. So we can define it as ecology is a scientific study of the distribution and the interaction between organism and their natural environment is called as ecology. It is a study of interaction and the living and survival of any organism with their environment, and it is an study of interrelationship between the organism and their interdependency on the environment is called as ecology. This is the basic term of this ecology. Now comes to the next question, that is about what are the different types of ecology. Ecology has many types because there are many different ways to study ecology. If we are study about the landscape only, then we can say it is the study of landscape ecology. If we are studying about the population of a particular community, we can say it as a population ecology. Like a behavior ecology, if we are studying about the behavior of any organism toward their environment, is called as behavior ecology. Next term that is associated with this ecology is the autecology and synecology. Autecology words mean study of individual organism or individual species is called as autecology, means study of an individual organism with their environment and with their interaction with their interdependency with their environment is called as autecology. And it can we can also call it as a population ecology. Next thing is about the synecology. It is the study of group of organisms of different species with associated together as a unit that will be formed as a community, and it is also called as community ecology. Synecology is the study of a group of organisms with their environment, means it is the study of group of organisms with different species, group of organisms of different species with they are associated together and their interaction with the environment and their interrelationship between each other is called as synecology, and it's also called as community ecology, means the study of the interaction between different individual of a population and their interaction with the environment, means that is called as community ecology, means the interaction of individual species with their community is called as community ecology. And the different question is about the scope of ecosystem. What are the different scope of ecosystem, means why we are studying this ecosystem and what is its scope. So ecology will play a very important role in agriculture, crop rotation, weed control like unwanted land is there, management of grassland, forest, etc., biological surveys, fishery surveys, conservation of soil, wildlife, survey of water bodies like river, lake, ponds. So all together means a study of all together whatever is available on the earth. Like some example is about the crop rotation to weed control is there. Some unwanted land is there. Management of grassland, forest, etc. Biological survey, fishery survey, conservation of soil, wildlife, survey of water bodies like river, lake, pond, etc. So this is the scope of ecosystem. Next question is about the hydrological cycle. So previously we have discussed about the hydrological cycle, means the movement of water into its different form, then again come back to water to the environment is called as hydrological cycle. So what are the different stages of this hydrological cycle? So this hydrological cycle has 5 stages, and the 5 stage names are the condensation phase, precipitation phase, infiltration, runoff, evapotranspiration. That will all together make up a hydrological cycle. Means first of all condensation will take place. It is the formation of water vapor into the liquid, and then precipitation will be there, that is the rain, and then infiltration is there, means infiltration is the filtration of water through the soil to the groundwater, and then some runoff is there, means water runoff is there. In evapotranspiration means again this evapotranspiration process will start, and that water will again go to the clouds. So this is all together will make a hydrological cycle. Next definition we are going to discuss the condensation. Normally it is a very common terminology that has been asked in all examination. First is the condensation. Condensation is a process in which the water vapor changes into the liquid. Means water vapor, that is in the form of water vapor, it will change into the liquid. And next is about the definition of evapotranspiration. So what will happen when moisture that is present in the soil will evaporate into the atmosphere, or when transpiration from plant occurs, this is called as evapotranspiration. When moisture from the soil will evaporate into the atmosphere, and when transpiration from plants occurs, this is called as evapotranspiration. Next definition is about the aquifers. These are the terms that is related with the groundwater. So groundwater is the water that is contained on the ground surface, underground water that is present, all water that is present beneath the earth surface, means that is holding into the rock that is available within the earth surface. So groundwater is the water contained in the ground surface, located in the space between the soil particles and the cracks of sand, gravel and rock. That is a natural source and source of water for drinking, irrigation, recreation and industry. Means groundwater, that is water has been held by different aquifers, and that has been located in the space between soil particles and the cracks of the sand, soil and gravel and rocks, and it is a natural resource of water that will be used, that we can use for the drinking, irrigation purpose, recreation purpose and industrial work purpose. So this is a groundwater. Next term associated with this groundwater is the aquifers. Aquifers is a layer of rock that will hold the groundwater is called as aquifers. Means a rock that will hold the water beneath the earth surface is called as aquifers. Means aquifer is an underground layer of rocks that contains groundwater. Basic, we can define it as a underground layer of rock that contains groundwater is called as aquifer. Next is defined confined aquifer. Means aquifer is confined aquifer and unconfined aquifer. Two types of aquifer is there. First one is confined aquifer. Means an aquifer that exists where the groundwater is bounded with layers of impermeable substances like clay or dense rock. When trapped by a well, water in confined aquifers is forced up, sometimes above the soil surface. This is how a flow artesian well is formed. It is known as artesian pressure or aquifers. Means confined aquifers exist where the groundwater is bounded between two layers of impermeable rocks, and these are like sometimes it will be a clay or dense rock, and when it will be trapped by a well, automatically that water will come out in a very force, in a force and pressure, and this is called as artesian force on or pressure of, and this is the artesian aquifers also, that this is called about the confined aquifers. This is all about the confined aquifers, means an aquifers that will exist where the groundwater is bounded between layers of impermeable substances like clay or dense rock. When trapped by a well, water is confined aquifers is forced up, sometimes above the soil surface. This is how a flowing artesian well is formed, and this is also known as artesian or pressure aquifers. So this is all about the groundwater, means where this groundwater has been situated, and rocks which is holding this groundwaters, means where that is present. So first one is aquifers. Aquifers are those rocks that will hold the groundwater, is called as aquifers. And aquifers is of two types: confined aquifers and unconfined aquifers. Confined aquifers are those aquifers that will be present between the layers of impermeable rock like clay or dense, and confined aquifers that will be not present between the layers of clay or dense rock. So in confined aquifers, water is holding in the confined aquifers, too much water is there. So with a pressure, with a well, when well will be there, when water is confined aquifers, if force, when a force will come out, automatically that water will come out with high pressure, and a well is formed. That well is called as artesian well, and this is a very common definition. Sometimes it will be asked as what is artesian well, means when we'll put force on the confined aquifers, automatically water will come out in many force, with a very high force. This and a well kind of condition will create it. This is called as artesian well. So this is all about the groundwater. Now comes to the next definition and terminology. First of all, this is about the hydrology. First definition is about the hydrology. If some question will come like a hydrology, define a word hydrology. Hydro means water. Hydro is equal to water, and logos already we know that to study. So to study of waters, the study of occurrence, distribution, and chemistry of water on the earth is called as hydrology. So that field of environment science that will occur with the occurrence of water, it's the distribution and it's the chemistry of water all over the earth surface, is called as hydrology. Hydrology will deal with the study of water, its occurrence, its distribution, and water chemistry is called as hydrology. Next term that is associated with this water hydrology is wetlands. Wetlands is a very important term. We define the term wetland. So wetland are those area where water saturation is a dominant factor in determining the nature of soil development and the types of plant and animal communities. Other common name of wetland is ponds, marshes, lochs. So what will happen of area where water saturation is dominant factor, means water is mainly present in determining the nature of soil development and type of plant, means water is the main factor that will grow some plants, and with that soil will be communities or animal community will be survive. And we can say that different name is the slog, ponds, and marshes, means those natural area where water is present, water is already present, is called as wetlands. Water is already present, and its example is some ponds and marshes also. Wetland is those water when water table will come out of the to the soil table, and water table will be there, naturally it will be come out. So this kind of condition we can say that it is like we can define it as a wetland. So these are the basic terminology that has been associated with the model number 1, that is environment and ecosystem. So in this lecture we have studied about the interaction of any individual with their ecosystem and survival, and what are the main biotic and abiotic component of any ecosystem, and any organism can survive in its ecosystem by their interaction with the biotic component and abiotic component. Then only the survival of an organism can be possible on this earth. And that's why this topic we have studied about the environment and ecosystem. Now in the next class we're going to study about the natural resources and the all basic terminology and definitions related with the subject with the model number 2, that is natural resources. Now, thank you for today's lecture.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.